Awesome. There we
And we're
go.
live. Hello, my name is Magdalena Ponurska, and I am the creator of Courage to Create, a platform that connects, educates, inspires, and brings together the thought leaders in the field of courage and creativity. Today, with me, I have James Steger.
Yeah, my name is James Steger. I am the founder of Courage to Create. It is, a new platform for me. Uh, I just enjoy expressing myself and, you know, sharing my hopefully deep thoughts on Substack.
Wonderful. So, today we're going to change our format and experiment to start with James reading his publication that he just literally published 20 minutes ago or so. So
Alright.
he's going to read it to us and share with us. After that, we'll have a deep discussion around courage and writing if and thoughts about creation, creativity, innovation, and writing. Go ahead, James.
All right, so my article is called Do Not Force It. It's sort of a topic I've been a little dwelling on, especially because, I'm starting to write and I'm starting to get in the flow of creativity. It's important not to just really post, you know, nonsense. Or, uh, are force. Have you ever felt the need to do something? Maybe start a book or talk to someone you secretly like? These things seem simple and, in reality, are not impossible to do, yet they always seem daunting. Say you do go and talk to that special someone you've been daydreaming about for the past few weeks. The only problem is that once you do go and confront them about your feelings, you instantly freeze. All your preparation goes straight down the drain. It's okay. That's why I'm going to explain the human nature of forcing a result beyond the prep. Forcing a result is something we as humans find as the easiest way of doing something. It's never pretty, but at least we've dealt with it. Terrible mindset, especially for starting really any career. As my basketball coach always says, be fast, but don't rush. This really applies to anything in life, whether on the court or not. Having a little methodical vigor to your work drastically improves the outcome to a situation. Having a natural approach to things helps ease the outcome into your favor. This can apply to a lot of things, whether it be working out or talking to someone. Rushing into a situation with a half fleshed out plan rarely goes right. Give it a try. Going back to my romantic situation from before, let's say this time you have thought out your approach. Personally, I cannot tell you how to act in this situation. I can tell you, however, that if you do read the room and methodically push the odds in your favor, 9 times out of 10 it will work. Things like introducing yourself or complimenting someone beforehand can set a great base for a conversation rather than just full out committing. It's all about the approach to the situation and building on it. In conclusion, things aren't meant to be rushed. Thinking through a situation beforehand goes a long way.
Thank you, James, for sharing that with us. What so I'm curious what led you to write that piece.
Um, you know, it's I guess it's just sort of, getting into the writer's mindset of, getting in the groove, finding your creativity. And I guess really it's also just, telling myself that I shouldn't rush. So it's almost like, you know, as I'm telling all the people watching and reading, um, I still need to stay true to myself. But really, I kind of came to me in the middle of a basketball game when one of my friends, who is a starter for our basketball team, he was running up court as fast as possible to make a easy 2 point. And because of all the adrenaline and he was getting, pushed and shoved by the other players, he, made a bad decision and jumped way too early and just completely missed. And he's like, that was just way too forced. I don't know why I did that. And, it kind of came to me, yeah, that can really be applied to a lot of things. So that's kind of the context behind the whole article.
Yeah, I love it. So a basketball as a metaphor for life or metaphor for writing. That is amazing. The other thing that I've heard in your article and in your sharing is slowing down. That I think it's such a great reminder. No matter how many times we hear it, I think there's a great need to be reminded of that over and over, regardless if it's in basketball, jobs, relationships, or writing. The other, so what there's as you were reading, I was jotting down some thoughts that jumped at me. And one of the words you've used in your essay is the rigor for writing. So, can you say a little bit more about uh, the difference or the different approach between pausing and going with what I like to call with the flow versus being rigorous in your writing. And I know that your writing is a little bit different. Your approach to writing is very different than mine. So I'm curious to hear your perspective, and then I will say a little bit more about my perspective.
Um, well, specifically, in my article, I said methodical uh, vigor.
Mhm.
Um, so, like being able to, just slow down, think things through, and of course there are a bunch of different kinds of like vigor. You write for a long time. In this specific situation, it's just, you know, taking the time to just think things through for, any certain amount of time so you actually have an idea rather than, rushing through.
Perfect. And I so I love that approach. Also, because you were talking about romantic situation and that approach and rush in force that or not, given that Valentine's is coming. Tell us a little bit more how from your perspective of a 15-year-old, and based on what you wrote, how would you approach someone and have a conversation about Valentine's Day with them?
Um, well, yeah, that's a pretty tricky question. Um, but are you asking like how would I ask someone out? Because that seems like almost what you're saying, or like, do you literally mean like asking someone about a Valentine's Day?
asking some more from the perspective asking someone about Valentine's because I know you are in high school and I know in high school there's
Mhm,
just so much emotions associated with Valentine's Day, right? And so even the
mhm,
conversation, right, about Valentine's Day can be uncomfortable because if you if you ask someone and that someone is not ready to have that conversation, then I know there's always the fear like, oh my God, so and so is this person asking me out? So how would you even start the conversation even before asking someone out.
mm. I don't know, I guess, following my own writing,
Mhm.
it's always great to have a plan, but,
Yeah.
I feel like the majority of people, especially in that kind of situation, it's just gonna, come off the top. It's just, being natural, being yourself, like, you don't have to be, robotic or,
Mhm.
you know, like, I mean, of course, persuasive, but it's not like you're begging them. So it's sort of a weird in between, but as of not like since it's not exactly Valentine's Day yet, I
Mhm.
have very little information, especially since I've not seen that in the real world.
Mhm. Perfect. And there's a reason why I was asking for that because again I'm going to there's such a beautiful parallel and metaphor in what you wrote and also in this conversation, of course, to writing, right? Because when we think about going to tie that. So what makes for succeeding is having a plan, right? So check, you talked about plan. What makes for a successful writing is being natural and being authentic. That's exactly what you talked about. And then what you also talk about is the persuasive part. So for anyone to read our writing, we get to be persuasive. So we actually get to share our viewpoint with others, and a lot. And in some pieces, we allow them to be persuaded or not, depending on our skill set. But it aligns beautifully with what you were saying. And I want to also circle back to the rushing versus not rushing, and then forcing versus not forcing. So when it and so in my personal opinion, um, when it comes to creativity, I don't think we can rush creativity because when we do rush, then in my experience, things go sideways and with rush comes the forcing. So my own experience has been that if I rush and I force my writing, it's never as good as when I allow myself to be in the flow and when I allow myself to do deep work. However, there's the other side of, and we run into this very often into the writing circles of if I don't force myself, then nothing gets produced. So, what are your thoughts? What are your in terms of form and how productive you are? And you can get to, in your case, to homework. I know you have to force sometimes you have to force homework. How does that go?
um, Sorry, you cut out like a little bit. I heard the last few parts about
Oh, sure.
homework, but
Yeah.
it was like how do you,
Force
without
force yourself to do
forcing.
homework.
Okay. Um, I consider myself to be pretty diligent with my homework,
Yeah.
but of course, there are always those assignments where I just like dread doing it because it's just a subject I don't like. Um, but, you know, it's it's kinda just thinking of, you know, my future and my, um, I just enjoy, learning things and expanding my, knowledge, but, it is really hard to just, like, sit down for 2 hours and do, like, exponent problems and just over
Mhm.
and over and over, and it's of course, it's methodical, you have to be diligent about it. It's supposed to be, repetitive so you get it in your brain, and, at the same time, you don't really wanna do that. But it's I don't know.
And I
I
think
think I was wrong.
again, it works. It ties beautifully. It ties beautifully to writing, right? Because very often, and I hear this over and over from participants in my workshop, is I don't want to do it every day, right? So
Oh, yeah.
there's that concept of possibly that could occur as a forcing, right? But and to your point is showing up reliably over and over and over. So as a writer, then you are seeing the future and you are seeing the progression, just like you do with your education and with your homework. And then you start seeing results and writing and producing much better and higher quality pieces. um, one of our participants says that seems there's a big difference between rushing and making space for and just showing up reliably. And I do agree that that when we make space, then the magic happens and the flow happens, versus if we are just on the autopilot and we're forcing ourselves to get things done and continue. And again, I'm guilty. I'm the first one to admit I'm guilty of it. I love my checklists, and so the force in the past, I have forced myself to get through assignments and get through projects just so I can check it off. Um, I'm unlearning that so I can and relearning, making a space so then the flow and the deep work can actually show up. So, and at the same time, I'm not giving up the uh, re- showing up reliably, the rigorous daily writing habit. Um, the other interesting part that I I've heard in your article is, and you mentioned your basketball coach. Um, and can you talk a little bit more about other life lessons or uh, um, writing lessons that you have discovered through basketball and through sports? Because I think that is it's super interesting topic.
Yeah, as I mentioned in past lives, or not past lives, but, live streams, that's what I mean. But I mentioned I
Yeah.
love finding correlations in my daily life to things,
Mhm.
but I think out of all of them, you know, specifically that one just stuck out to me, because it works so well with a lot of what we do in our daily lives. Um, but, um, I really appreciate what my coach does. Really energetic guy, really looking out for all of us. And you know, can't really think of other. coach wisdoms he has in put onto us.
Perfect. And maybe that's something that you can start noticing in your daily life. It's the coach wisdoms that then
Yes.
you can write about. And I
Yeah.
want to tie this to the question that I get very often asked: what what do I write about? So a lot of people have asked me, I really want to write, but I don't just shared a brilliant example of um, just noticing what have I learned on the basketball court today, or what have I learned today from my coach. And there's such a depth and richness of inspiration and motivation and being able to share with others just just from that one practice, right, that you had.
Mhm.
I think you had that practice just couple days ago,
Yeah.
and that inspired you to write this beautiful piece that has that you were able to connect to other areas of your life. And that's where the magic of writing happens. And I think that when you think about the flow and how it all ties beautifully, um, and for the more analytical people and viewers, in terms of a workflow. So when you think about workflow, right, James has this experience on a basketball court, right? So he hears his coach saying something, then he takes time and he reflects, and then he gets this incredible urge to write something, and that shows up in his writing, and then that continues and sparks other conversations around um, forcing, around rigor, around rushing, making space, showing up, and just noticing that in our daily lives, I think is absolutely priceless. Would you agree with that, James? Do you have any other thoughts that you would add to that?
Um, like, yeah, it's just, building a community with the people, in your space, like, I love talking to my coach. He's so much fun. He really like brightens up my day with, all of his wisdoms. So it's really just about writing is, one thing about yourself and how you express yourself, but it's also almost like how you interact with others to get, you know, your like creative, you know, ideas. And, of course, some ideas stem from other things like just self epitomes or other things, but I feel like the majority of writing comes from interactions with people. And that's, the beauty of it all. It's just there's so much, variability to writing, and how different people experience it.
So, what happens when you are introvert uh, and you don't like talking to people?
That is a
I
good
you know, by
point.
the way, I absolutely agree with you, but I cannot help to ask this question because I know there is a lot of viewers there that are thinking, I don't like talking to people. I'm an introvert and I just like being by myself, reading my books, and writing in my own.
Yeah, I had a
So
feeling like
I'm curious.
that thought was like all the way back here, and I had a feeling you were gonna say that. So I was like, okay, I know I'm gonna like regret saying this, but it does, it strengthens your writing ability. But I feel like of course there's so many, genius scientists and engineers that were
Yeah.
introverts and had so many ideas. Not to say like you can't be an introvert and have, great novels and, creative, upbringings.
Yeah.
But it's like if I feel like, at least for me, being able to write is, connecting with the reader. So, you kind of need to know your reader. You need to
Mhm.
know who's gonna read it. And like talking to people is almost like, there's a present tense of writing, and then writing is the past tense of talking. If you, it's kind of convoluted,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's kind of how I think about it.
Would you consider yourself an introvert or extrovert?
Um, I would say I'm kind of a mix of both. Like I definitely need my social battery to recharge and
Mhm.
decompress from all the social behaviors because I spent like 12 plus hours at school every day.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy interacting with people. I said I enjoy interacting with my coach, definitely my
Mhm.
friends. Get inspiration from anyone really,
Mhm.
even, random passerbys or the barista at, a cafe. It's just, thinking from other people's experiences and ideas and incorporating it into your own writing.
Love it. So inspiration is everywhere around us. It's just making the choice to tap into it, to be aware, to be present, and then slow down. And I think that ties beautifully to slowing down so you can get inspired, so you can have the conversation with that barista, or you can have a conversation with um, someone that is having a bad day and they're grumpy. A friend that might be less,
Yeah,
might be not as happy as you would like them to be. And yet, to your point, I think, not I think, I know that there is a richness in that that allows us then to take those moments and transfer them onto a paper, onto the keyboard, and inspire, motivate, share with others, which then it has actually a global, more global effect. And I, I love the impact, right? Because you you just had a conversation with a barista. You are going to write about it and then talk about it on live, and people in Europe or in India or New Zealand get to read that and they get to watch that. So it's so magical, so beautiful that thanks to technology nowadays we can do all of it.
of course. Yeah.
I'm curious, what are your thoughts on so drawing inspiration from others and also knowing your audience, and that's 100% 100% right. Um, when you think about your audience, who would you say your audience is? I'm really curious. Or who would you like to attract? Who would you like your audience to be?
That's a really good question. Um, but I love to like doctor, medical people. As much as I'm like a freshman in high school, I'm only 15. I feel like very little of my audience is, teenagers or, young adults. And I'm okay with that. It's really I have no preference for, my who my
Mhm.
audience is. I just really want to share. It's kind of um, you know, I could really have anyone read any of one of my stuff. It's not for any single demographic or age group.
Yeah.
I just I just write. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. And that's again, that's the beauty of it. It's just write, just publish, and just experiment. I think that's the biggest takeaway, and maybe we can make that into our hashtags. Just write,
Just write.
just share, and just experiment. Perfect. Any closing thoughts? Anything that you would like to share with your audience before we close?
Hmm. Uh, just like keep at it. You know, I hope you've learned something. You know, go the extra step. Go talk to some baristas or something. Like interact. Maybe it will change your writing a little bit. Interact with some new people. So yeah.
I love that. Perfect. We're drumming up more business for coffee houses and
Oh yeah,
baristas.
I guess so.
But I love that. I love that. It's yeah, it's an excellent stretch. So our ask of for the audience and anyone that is watching the recording is stretch yourself, go and talk to a stranger, and then write about it. And we both promise that we'll read when you share that with us and when you tag us in your post. There
Of
will be
course.
a fantastic experiment. What came from talking to strangers and how that showed up on Substack. I love that. Thank you so much for joining us. We greatly appreciate you, and we look forward to reconnecting with you next Sunday, same time, 5 p.m. Eastern, and hopefully next Sunday we'll have a extra special guest with us. This he couldn't make it this time around, but next week we'll talk a little of course a little bit more about courage, innovation, creation, and of course, writing. And we've decided that each Sunday live or Sunday session will be brought by a different word. We're not sure yet what the words are going to be for next Sunday, but whatever they are, we promise that it's going to be absolutely fabulous.
Yes.
Thank you for joining, and have a great week and great weekend. Thanks, James.